Okay, guys, gang, whatever. Good afternoon, everyone. Heading to our final budget deliberation. Fiscal year 22. Today is Friday, Why does this July 14th?
Doesn't.
What do I have, the wrong one? There it
Yeah.
is. So today is Friday, July 16th. No, seriously. 2021, I've got 1:03 p.m. Officially calling the meeting to order, attending Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. And we have only one agenda item, and it is an action item. It's fiscal year 22 budget deliberations. This is our final balancing, and I'll ask our finance director, Dina Darrow, to lead us off, please, again. Tina.
Commissioners, welcome to the last day of budget deliberations. So I'm going to hand off to my boss, the clerk, to make some opening comments.
Thank you, Dina, and I would like to thank the commissioners.
Push
Can
your
you
button
turn
there.
your, there we go.
I know,
Thank
I
you.
forget. I have such a booming voice, I usually forget. I would like to thank Dina and Michelle, as well as the Board of County Commissioners, for their hard work during this process. I know it's hard to balance a budget, and I think when we're going to see today will make it a little easier. We have been talking with the state and our liquor fund situation that we are going to, actually, Kootenai County is drinking quite a bit. So we are going to get a lot of additional liquor funds. I would assume that'll be good, except for might affect our sheriff and their efforts, but we have found out that we are going to get a lot extra from our liquor funds. And when we were talking to Tony at the state, he asked, is Athol in Kootenai County?
Yeah, I remember that.
And yes, it is. And he goes, my goodness, that new Super One store up there is bringing in tons of revenue. Now, I know Commissioner Bingham and I know Deborah Rose and her husband live up there, but I just think that's probably just a coincidence. Also, you can see I haven't been here in a while, so I'm glad to talk to you all.
Well, you're unloading this.
You're all rolling.
These windfalls do give you the opportunity to balance the budget easier,
sir.
and it gives you some options. You can obviously use these additional funds to reduce taxes for the taxpayers if that's your choice. You can address some compression issues that we see in our salaries and wages. But I am glad we worked diligently on this, because for many years, and we talked about it at the IAC meeting earlier today, revenue was understated. And with our growth, we had to try to make sure we were getting it properly stated. And so with that, I'm going to let these folks talk about how much more, and what you do with it is obviously your purview. So thank you for letting me have a little fun today.
Thank you,
Jim.
That was entertaining. And we missed you, by the way.
Well, I was on vacation for 2 weeks and I did not touch my computer.
Good
It
for
was
you.
wonderful.
Go ahead, Dina.
Thank you. So I wanted to first recognize the work that Leslie and especially Jennifer did to really dig in, to do the calculations and reach out to specific people to get information, to find out what was happening with the revenue sharing at the state level. I know that Jennifer spoke with Tony numerous times at the liquor board and was able to get some projections that were more current. So we were able to adjust what our projected revenue was. Also, with the hard work that you did to do some cuts at the beginning, we're looking at a pretty sizable surplus right now. So I wanted to walk you through at a very high level, and I did send these documents out. Let's see, is that one here? Okay, here we go. So there's a lot of numbers on here, but basically, in a nutshell, we're looking at some accounts here: state revenue sharing, sales tax, liquor apportionment, and we also the liquor apportionment also goes to the district court. So in addition to what we normally receive, the law changed 2 years ago where district court started getting their own separate apportionment to pay for the higher cost of district court. So those funds weren't budgeted. They are this year, which is going to relieve the tax burden for 2022 on the court fund because they're going to have this extra revenue stream, and that will continue to come in. So this is ongoing revenue. In addition to that, there's going to be an adjustment at the end of fiscal year 21. We're going to get approximately 1.3 million. 210,000 of that will go to the district court. The rest will go to the general fund because they undercalculated what we should receive. So that will, in effect, go into our fund balance. But the increase for next year, here's our windfall. With the 5 payments that they're estimating at the low end for liquor tax, we'll be getting $3.6 million.
Which is what we're getting this year.
Right.
Too, so.
And then 400,000 for next year for district court. So in total, go back to this one. If we go over to the right, and thank you, Michelle, for calculating all of this. You remember earlier we had adjusted our revenue, and I'm not, there it is. So remember when we went through and we did the calculation, I don't know, a few weeks ago where we said, okay, we looked at 2020, what our revenue sharing was, and we said, okay, we know that we'll probably have more than that, so we did a real conservative estimate of what we thought the increase would be. Well, after talking to our friends at the state level, that's the additional revenue that we'll be receiving over and above that 1.8. So we're going to get another 2.3. So that said, let's go back to the first preliminary summary that I've ever seen where in mid-July you're looking at a surplus at the end. Now, granted, this tax number, we're still waiting for the final number. We're not going to get that till the 20th. It could fluctuate up or down, but this is the best number that we have right now. That's 3% plus new growth. But now you have the ability to actually address some of the bigger issues that you've been talking about. Wages, compression, systems, long-term planning for facilities, all of those things. So now you're actually in a position where you could use this money for things that you've had to put off. So it's an unusual windfall. As you can see over here, anything that was marked in red, we either made the cut or did the addition. We also added yesterday the half position for the coroner. That's in there. So if we go over to personnel, because that's kind of our biggest thing. Let me scooch over. Okay. So let's filter. So right now, this is all the stuff that's in now. These are the new positions at the top. We did thaw those 3 echo positions. We added an appraiser. We added the bailiff. We added the judicial assistant, civil clerk, legal assistant is in, deputy coroner is in, and then these changes. We have all the on-calls are in, and then all these various changes. I also added for the sheriff the 8 conversions from control room operators to control deputies, and added the associated onboarding with training and equipping those deputies. So our total personnel before all of the benefits increase, which went down, the COLA and STEP, and the reserve that we just put in a placeholder at 100,000. That's our total new personnel now, and we still have that surplus.
Of 2.1.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are other positions in here. So I'm going to open this back up again. Anywhere where there's a 0.
Dana,
Yes.
that 2 $2 million, the windfall, is that one-time money? Or
No, that's gonna be ongoing money because it's a transmittal from the state for liquor sales.
Well, that
It
is-
could fluctuate, but it should be an
should be.
ongoing, reliable revenue source.
And once again, we're still projecting a little bit lower than what it is.
Yeah, we're being conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a windfall.
I also want to state too, Keith and I were looking at potential fund balance coming back for this fiscal year, just based on the two payments we received. For the first one, the share revenue, we're likely going to see another 1.6 million. For the sales tax, we're likely to see, again, additional to what we projected for revenue last year, 1.1 million. And then the state liquor apportionment, for the general fund, 1.1 million, and for the magistrate side, 371,000, bringing us to almost $4,100,000 that will return back likely to our fund balance at the end of the year.
Which is not in here, or is it in here? It's not.
No, it's only gonna be captured.
It will be
Oh, okay, when it
received in
occurs.
fiscal year
Okay.
21.
We're looking at projections of what the two payments we've already
Okay,
received.
okay.
Right. So not in yet, but will likely go back to fund balance at the end of the year.
Which will potentially more than offset where we're hitting fund balance for the purpose of this budget?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes, so you're in a unique position where you actually are in a good place.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
these are all the positions that have either been cut or suspended. So if there's, I know that the assessor had made a request to have you evaluate these two appraiser positions to add back.
Yeah?
I know that the clerk, and I won't speak for the clerk, but I will just mention that one of the things that's really critical as far as finding efficiencies and avoiding any misstatements and making sure that our numbers are right and that everybody is doing their financial things right is to have some kind of an internal audit function.
So you're telling me that 21,000 will get us an internal audit function?
I have an employee right now who took the initiative to get her certification to be a certified internal auditor. It took her almost 2 years, and she also has multiple college degrees. So we have that talent in-house. We can enhance a current position and add duties to it, and we could start spinning up an internal audit function at this level, and then perhaps add a part-time person if needed. But I would just say, on behalf of the clerk and on behalf of the auditor, we are an organization that is getting to a size that we really should consider some kind of an internal audit function.
Well, I know, since I've gotten here, it's been on the,
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is going to strengthen the controls, of course, and it'll also give the confidence that the numbers are correct. I've heard that people are not confident. Well, this will do that. And it goes along with the, the new Transparency Act that the comptroller is putting together, where we'll all be reporting in the same fashion. It would help if we could coordinate that with every department, say the airport, say the fairground, so we can report exactly the same. And that's why the internal audit function would really ultimately be, well, the savings that we could come up with process improvements would probably pay for itself. Not guaranteed, but probably.
I'd be in favor of funding that.
Okay, you got 3, done.
Thank you. All right. Assessor positions,
Okay,
Yes.
so, yeah, help us out here, Dina.
143, 113 plus onboarding, 1675. The assessor's here.
Three positions.
It's
Dina.
3, isn't it?
Yes.
His email only spoke to these 2 appraiser positions.
Yeah.
Oh.
The other appraiser position has been approved. It was added back on Wednesday.
Oh,
So there was an appraiser 1, and then there's 2 appraisers 2. So I'm assuming it's the 2 appraisers 2 that you wanted to add back.
It is, I did neglect to address the third, it's listed there,
The cadastral,
Yes.
when you sent the projection back, you had the bubble around 3. That's why I thought we were still talking about 3.
Yeah, well, he had only mentioned appraisers. I didn't know if the cadastral tech was part of that.
It
Be-
is, but
okay.
I did not specifically mention, that was an error in my email.
Okay, and what is that position? What does that do?
The cadastral tech?
Yes.
It's mapping, I can't speak to the specifics of it, but
Okay.
my land records manager would be able to elaborate on that.
Okay, so the appraisers are residential?
So my original request was for 1 commercial
Yep.
and 2
commercial.
residential,
Okay?
and that remains the need. So I would need 1 commercial and 2 residential.
Right, and so 1 commercial
Was
was
al-
in my, my add backs.
So it was already in there?
Yes.
Yep.
And
Okay.
so now we've got the 2 residential who,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I mean, our growth is ridiculous, and that's just gonna impact how soon, they can get their job done.
And let's face it, not every year is gonna be as, how do I put it, as manageable, so to speak, as this one and the last one. Once this market turns, we're gonna be so overwhelmed. Anyway, I'm fine. Bill,
Phil?
you got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Open positions, are we still doing all open positions in the county at 50%? Where are we at with that?
I don't believe we have very many left, though.
No, I don't think we do either, but yeah.
Yeah, you had that list.
Yeah.
I think you sent that list out. Several of the positions have been filled, so they're very
So they're already-
minimal. Would you want to fund those at 100%?
I'm
We're
not ready,
gonna
I'm not,
spend it.
yeah, I'm not
We're not
ready.
gonna spend it, but
Okay.
I just want, to clarify, any open positions right now that may be funded at 50%, you're still supposed to hire for them, and then it's going to balance out throughout the year, unless somehow our departments are gonna maintain 100% occupancy, which I wish that would be the case. So then in 6 months, we can go back and review each personnel that had openings in the beginning and say, okay, where are you tracking? And so we know, as a board, we understand and know that even though it's 50%, we're not saying don't hire until April, we're saying hire now. But what the understanding is, if you don't have salary savings going forward, then
Yeah,
you're
we
gonna
gotta
be
manage
covered.
it, I think is what you're
You're gonna
saying.
cover.
Right,
Yeah, the positions are not frozen, that's the key.
Correct.
'cause
Right, that is correct.
right. Okay, we can leave those then.
I don't want to jump ahead, so cut me off if I'm wrong. On the $100,000 that we put in for compression and adjustments,
Yeah,
do we need to boost that any at this point?
well, and I'll defer to Sylvia because she and her team were doing
Oh,
some
okay,
initial
thank you.
analysis to look at what it would take to take care of compression.
Yes, and so Dorothy did look at it for us, did a comfort ratio analysis, and in addressing compression, and what I want to make clear is we're not moving everybody to the right step in the pay plan based on time and position. What we were looking at, the supervisor to their direct reports, were they making less? And we also looked at if there's some people have been here longer, making less than someone who just recently started. So we looked at those kind of issues. And we're calculating load at probably about 400,000. And again, it's very back of the napkin calculation. We would really need to be able to study it a little bit further and really dive in. But we're saying about 400,000 for that. And then I did an analysis to look at our mid-year changes that we've made at our HR meetings. And just year to date, it's about 700 and some thousand. So I would assume for a year, you would, because you talked about putting funds in a contingency or somewhere for those
A pool.
mid-year changes, I'd say you'd need about $1 million there.
So 1 million plus the 400?
No, $1 million plus the 400? Well,
Ooh.
I'm not we're funding a bunch of positions now. I'm not anticipating we're gonna have a bunch of mid-year positions that are gonna need to be funded.
Well, this has just been the trend. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of mid-year changes that you guys always have a
Yeah,
packed
the last,
docket for
the
your
last look I had
personnel
that Nancy
meetings.
Pluff showed, I think we had 49.
Yeah.
There-
year-to-date
there
that
have
we've done
been
mid-year?
some, And maybe some of that'll get alleviated with the positions that you're adding, but,
Well, considering our labor market,
yeah.
I don't have a problem necessarily with the 400,000 to try and correct what's been a long-standing deficiency, but the rest of it I'd put aside for now.
So are you anticipating not doing any mid-year changes then for 2022? Because we haven't funded that. And we know that, 700,000 last year was at least that much.
Historically, it's happened.
Historically, there's been a need for funds for that. So from a transparency perspective, you know, you could put a pool there and then put a policy around that pool and say, okay, these are the criteria, so it isn't just a mad rush to spend it all.
right? Well, the thing too is we've had a lot of those changes were covered by revenue, increase in revenue. So it's one of those things, okay, yeah, our revenue's going up, but we don't have the bodies yet to offset that.
Sure.
So
But there are ongoing costs, even if they're paid for with salary savings.
Nancy?
I was gonna say, a lot of them were covered by salary savings this year, but that's increasing next
Correct.
year's budget.
That's
So-
correct.
Right, but that's already
Yeah.
calculated
Remember that.
in this.
Yeah.
Captain?
With the approval of the new positions, I want to be clear, the frozen positions that we gave up for 21 are thought for 22.
3 ECOs.
Okay.
If there's anything else, we don't know about it.
We had a control room operator and there was one other.
That is a
Oh, that-
good category for mid-year because with these deputies, now control room operators going to deputies, you show me that you have full detention deputies and we'll talk about more control room
Yeah, yeah.
operators. Does that make sense?
Because that's 8.
So the
So-
position's still frozen as the control room operator. But
What's
if
that?
we get-
Yeah.
So right now, there's $214,000 being, or no, it's more than that. Hang on. Oh, please.
I don't want to jump ahead here.
Commissioners, the $139,000 that's there to move those control room operators to deputies, that's all good to go, right?
It's in there.
That's
That
included.
the cuts were not approved, so they are not, the cuts are not in there. It's funded as requested.
Yep. So it's in.
It's in is the answer to your question.
It's in, yeah,
Thank you.
yep. So the 8 conversions are in along with the onboarding. The echoes are back. Now, let's see, where is it? Control room operator, that one's still frozen. And the booking clerk is still frozen.
How is it hiring for booking clerks?
Been better. We've got all positions full right now.
Okay, so
We could use, we still only staff day shift with booking clerks. Our swing shift could use the same relief.
we're okay for now?
No, he's saying that we need the booking clerk.
You do need the booking clerk?
Oh, yeah.
And it's just thawed, so it's not like a brand
All
new
right, that's
position.
fine. I'm okay.
Bill, are you good with that one? Okay,
The assessors.
all right.
Yeah, Bela?
Commissioners, I'd like to come back and I see the highlighting that we did there. I was not able to speak to the cadastral tech position. I see it's not highlighted. I do have Betty here now. She can speak to those issues, but that is part of my request.
But I think we approved it, didn't we?
Did we approve the 3?
Yeah, we approved the 3, didn't we?
Well, you approved an appraiser 1 and 2 appraiser 2s, not the cadastral.
So I guess I see, you've got 3 appraisers and 1,
Yes, and 1 appraiser was approved on Wednesday, and then
Right.
you just approved 2 more.
And I'm requesting the cadastral technician. You did ask more specifically what the requirements of that position, and I have Betty here to speak to that issue if you have that question still.
Go ahead.
Betty, can you
What,
come
what,
to the
yeah,
microphone?
you can take us, yeah, you're fine even if yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
What's the job essentially is what we're asking.
Okay, so it's actually a cadastral mapping specialist. And, oh no, I'm sorry, it is a tech because what we would do is promote within. The technician processes the documents. I need another mapper to map all the subdivisions, the segregations, and the things that come in, we're just overwhelmed. We didn't meet our deadline last year, and it's just, it's a burden. I mean.
It's part of the growth that we're experiencing.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was promote within because it's a fairly specialized position, being mapping. And so the person that's in there now is already experienced with our processes. So I can promote them and hire another document processor to help process, because I have 2 full-time document processors right now. I'm nervous right now, sorry. I've got 3 mappers, a lead mapper, and then and me, I think. So we just need another body for processing all those subdivisions and segs that are coming in, getting our maps out, and keeping up.
Okay.
What does the turnover look like in your department? Are you full staff most of the time?
The last person hired is 2 years. Everybody else, 5, 10, we've got a lot of longevity there.
Okay, so you haven't had any, okay, I'm
Since I've
fine.
been here, I've not seen turnover in the land records department.
Right, and then when was your last body, how many years ago was your last body added?
I think she said 2.
Well, we actually converted that last hire from when I was promoted to manager. We put, instead of hiring another mapper, we hired a document processor because we were seriously falling behind. We were having to take mappers to do document processing at certain times of year, so we made them 2 document processors. So it shorted us a mapper, but otherwise, we haven't had any new staff for, I don't know, better than a decade.
Okay. Yeah, plus you're going to have district changes and whatnot, I think, that are coming up as well. I'm fine. You okay? Bill? Hold on, Dan. As long as we were talking about earlier the mid-year increases, I want to make sure we don't get ourselves in a jam again with these increases. When we talk about mid-year increases, what specifically are we talking? We have promotions. We have departures, but departures pay for other people. I guess what I'm getting at is we need to understand exactly what that is, because a mid-year increase can come about because somebody's being promoted. Well, if they're being promoted, we have to honor that with an increase because that's policy.
Sure.
But right now, we don't have any money there for that. Is that correct?
That's,
No,
Or am I
Some
wrong?
each mid-year increases are adding new positions. And
Yes.
community development's a good one to use as an
Yeah, go ahead.
example. So we added some new positions there. We've made some wage adjustments throughout the county related to certain positions. If there's a reclassification of a job, we've studied it and their duties have changed. We've adjusted their pay because that's what you do when they get a new grade. They get some extra pay to go along with that. So really it's, and converting some positions from a 3 to a 4 or a 1 to a 2, those sort of things have been coming to the board.
Okay, so how can, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So that's what's causing that.
So how can we not fund that? Because it's
Right,
going to
that's-
happen again.
Have to fund it.
so that's why we suggested doing a pool to not only address compression, the existing problems that we know, but we know that there's going to be all these mid-year changes for all this fluctuation of people in and
Right.
out. And we're going to be doing another wage study, so, you
But
know,
what Sylvia said earlier was the 400,000 would not be covering the mid-year increases. The
No, it's
400,
covering compression.
that, exactly, that's just compression.
some
So-
compression.
Yeah,
Okay, some compress, so do we need to add for mid-year?
Well, if,
You came up with a mill, I think, right?
yeah, if you looked at it from a year perspective, it's probably about $1 million and changes.
That ain't gonna happen.
I don't know, I guess we survive our budget, towards the end of the year, there's savings and it's covering itself.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to be proactive and budget those sort of things, you could. You just wanna make sure there's criteria around it, so
Yeah.
it isn't a free-for-all and there's this pot of money that we all go after.
Well, that, Sheriff?
I would agree with putting these monies aside for those mid-year changes. Can we turn that microphone on, please?
I would agree with putting some monies aside for those mid-year increases because from a public safety standpoint, the jail and hiring control room operators and the jail deputies has been extremely difficult. And it's just very, very difficult to find housing here in this, so I would like
And I tend to agree, it's just that $1 million is a big bite.
You're almost there this year now.
Yeah, but once again, we had unprecedented growth and we had all these different things that we hadn't had and we didn't fund any new positions last year. So that's just why I'm saying, I think that's an exorbitant amount. The other thing too is, I'm not necessarily interested in spending all this $2 million. I would like to give some back to the taxpayers, whether it's a 1% or a 1.5%. I mean, just because we have the money coming in doesn't mean we have to spend it. So I'm trying to go in and see where the bleeding is and plug those holes and then see, I don't want to just say, okay, here's this money, now let's just,
You could also put it in fund balance for future.
Yeah, you can put it in fund
but
balance.
once again, that's overtaxing and the legislature's coming after fund balance. We've already heard that. So that's my concern. I want to make sure that we're trying to track as close as possible so we're not overtaxing. And with URDs coming back next year, that would be the perfect building fund to just take that or a portion of that, and then that's for debt service, that's for buildings, maintenance, all that, and that's just what is set aside every year, just that money. So it's not an additional tax burden. So that's just the way I look at it.
Okay. Bill, Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
On what?
On what Leslie is saying?
Well, the way I'm looking at it is this, and you're right, she has a good point. The URDs are coming in next year, but next year would be the year, I think, where if we're not going to take 3%, that might be the year to do it. This year, to go any less than 3%, I think is wrong. Because, first of all, we went 0 last year. Secondly, if the difference is 2 versus 3, let's talk 1%. 1% of the 54 million is 540,000. Divide that by approximately 90,000 taxable parcels. That's $6 per year per parcel. Even if we're simply returning it to fund balance, I'll take on the legislature, because if that's the case, we might be able to, here's my other point, by the way, is I don't know what's going to happen with ARPA and the new building. And so if we have to supplement with fund balance, to your earlier point, I'd rather have the ability to grow the fund balance or maintain the fund balance so that we can supplement if we need to.
If needed.
But next year, I think, is a whole other matter, to Leslie's point, because now you've got those URDs coming in. This year, we've only got, what, 100 grand coming in URDs?
Well, I don't think we have any closing down because it was
None?
past the due
Okay.
date now.
All right.
And we'll only be able to take
Yeah.
80% of that at this point in time.
Well, I think we're planning a new building. There's not much talk during this budget process about planning a new building. That's gonna cost a lot of money, and I'd rather take that 3% and tuck it away in fund balance, knowing it's there and it can be used. I don't think it's any.
Part of it, anyway.
Yeah, or part of it. My position.
I think if we had a minimal vacancy rate from an employer standpoint, that we could talk about returning these monies, but we can't find employees right now, and if we need to have a temporary stipend or a temporary housing adjustment, we need to do that. So I think you should put that money aside and forecast for that.
And you've got 3 factored in there, right?
3%,
3%?
3%, yes, 3% plus 90% of the new growth. And when we receive the final numbers from the assessor, then we'll plug in
Right,
those final
right.
numbers. It shouldn't fluctuate that much. I'll go back to the preliminary summary. So right now, property tax, 54 million. So, so we've been talking about this pool for mid-year changes. So it sounds like, and what I'm hearing from Sylvia is 400,000 for the bigger obvious compression issues.
Yes.
And about $1 million for mid-year changes.
But I think we said we weren't going to do the mill, right?
No.
It should.
250,000, I think, would be sufficient to cover that.
So,
Yeah, we need to put something in there, and I think
Okay.
maybe that's reasonable.
okay. So what's the consensus of the board for a pool for mid-year changes in compression?
250 and take care of the 400,000 with
Okay.
So
compression.
650 total.
650?
If you're putting it in one line, then it'd be 650.
650 total.
That makes sense, and we just need to exercise control
the
as
two-
far as the
exactly.
mid-year stuff.
And the 250 gives us something to manage to.
Right.
Because now, when we consider these mid-year increases, we don't have a figure that we're managing to. We're taking
Right.
everyone on a case-by-case basis, but, but there are no parameters.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and by funding the STEP and the COLA, that's gonna probably reduce the amount of asks you have mid-year. So I'm thinking that if we push ourselves back to the place where we were way back when I started, we didn't have a lot of mid-year changes. So if our pay plan, I mean, and this is just in my humble opinion, if our pay plan is functioning and we don't have these compression issues, you shouldn't see a lot of mid-year asks because a pay plan is being applied.
That's a good point.
Good point.
That's a very good point. Okay. Where to?
I just want to swing, before we go any further, back to the control room operators and
Yes, sir.
the deputy, or the control room positions that are going to be turned into deputies. And I just want to make sure that what we have on the board is how we understand it and what that relationship's going to be making us able to staff the control rooms. Captain Deke is a little bit concerned. That's some of the conversation that we were having here a minute ago. So, Andy, do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to do it?
That's fine, you can.
Okay.
I could.
The bottom line is, if we got 8, it's a good thing that we're getting 8 control room positions, and thank you for that. That's a good thing. Those deputies not only can work in the control room, obviously they can work everywhere else in the jail. But what remains to be seen is our being able to staff those control rooms all the time, And I just want to be sure that with that transfer of those positions and with what's been de-thawed, that we have the ability to move forward and appropriately staff the control rooms going down the road. And so, Andy, that's where you're gonna have to speak up, because that's where.
We did have one thought that we helped fund this year's pay raises out of the control rooms. That one still remains frozen, is what I'm understanding. The 8 conversions are based on the 8 vacancies that we currently have or had. Or 8 of those positions are getting moved to deputy spots. We do still need that additional control room spot that has been frozen. And we did have a request in for a warrants clerk, or a classification deputy as well. That office hasn't expanded in over 20 years with staff. And as you know, our population, and we're looking at possible expansion again, the need is there. We're signing contracts for out-of-county housing, so the need for that deputy staff and control room staff are there. I just want to make sure that that's out there and you understand that.
Well, and I'm fine with the control room operator coming back mid-year if you fill the 8 detention deputies that are open now and the 8 control room operators, which are now detention deputies. That's 16 detention deputies.
It's unlikely, I mean, in my opinion, based on what I've seen recently, it's unlikely we would be able to fill that control room operator, so,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that the need isn't there, but I'm just saying,
Looking at it realistically.
It's not likely we'll be able to fill it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Are we okay?
I believe so. And Captain Deke, are you satisfied with what, you don't have any other questions, right?
Okay.
So
Thank you.
were we going to make any changes at this point to either of these positions?
No,
Or
I
are we
don't
just
think so.
gonna
Are we?
leave them out for now?
Well, the booking clerk,
Did we put the booking clerk in?
The booking clerk's in.
The booking clerk's in.
There's the classification deputy and the control room operator. So it sounds like the control room operator you're gonna hold off on.
yes.
We'll thaw the booking clerk and make that active.
Yes.
And then this classification deputy, did you want to fund that at 50% or you just want to hold off for now?
Can we hold off for that right now and let's see how the hiring goes on the other? And we come to a place in 6 to 8 months where we can do it, then we can
There you go.
address it. How's that?
And again, we just allocated some money for that for mid-year anyway,
Yeah.
so.
I
Yes,
do
sir.
want to reiterate what the sheriff said earlier about wages and hiring. A couple of years ago, the board was presented with a pay study that put us in comparison with the state prison system.
Oh, for detention?
Correct, and it was a flaw, there was a flaw in that study. We've asked for a redo of that study, and just last week, we became aware our surrounding counties, Latah and Bonner, are both starting higher than Kootenai County now for counties half the size, for detention pay. I'd like to see something, I mean, I'm just piggybacking on what the sheriff said, it is hard to get people to apply and get them in the door, so that it ties in with what you guys were already talking about, the additional pool money that, I mean, you mentioned 250,000, it'd be nice to see some incentive there for bringing people on, whether hiring bonus or something.
Well, and we haven't really, we've talked about approving recruitment and retention bonuses, but we haven't gotten there yet. And I think at this point, I'd like to see salary savings for this year used for retention bonuses, because obviously those
point.
departments have been short. And so if they've been short, then I think it's
Then we can tap into
particularly
that.
I
important.
think a lot of that salary savings has been going to pay for our overtime currently.
Right. But you guys, we've already kind of talked about other options for you guys too.
There is $12,572 in here for hiring bonuses for 911. So that is in the budget.
Okay, so we've got that in there, okay.
Yep. All
Now,
right.
do we have anything for hiring bonuses for detention? The captain's point?
I don't see anything here. I think we do have a line though for recruiting, don't we? That's about what, 35,000 sitting in the sheriff's?
We split it.
Okay,
Where we had the recruiting budget for advertising, they had recruiting budget for their purposes. So if the lateral or relocation bonuses
Right.
would have been in their budget.
Okay.
so they
all
do
right.
have some
So
funds
I don't
in
know
there.
if
All right,
Okay.
so,
Dollars fund the process too, do they not? I mean, for ESOF and all the rest of that,
I believe so, I'm not sure.
it doesn't matter.
so
For-
can,
For the purpose of moving on, can we just put an amount aside that we can come to the board in the event that we need to, which I believe we will have to, regarding our
You mean,
public safety in our jail, with, as far as it pertains to the jail deputies and the control room operators? I mean, if we could put X amount of dollars away to try to do something with their,
you mean for the hiring?
correct, with their pay. The detention
Well,
deputies.
no, I don't think we can go there with the pay just yet. The hiring bonus is another thing. The pay is really gonna relate to the study. And we went through this with detention, and they claim it was a faulty study, and some of us said, we don't think so. And you can call it an impasse if you will, but we basically said, look, guys, this is what the study indicated, and that's what we did. Now, Sylvia is going to embark on another study next year. Now, if you're asking for us to put money aside to correct what you might think is a deficiency, I don't know that we're ready to do that yet.
Well, no, I'm asking you to put some monies aside so we can staff a jail, which is about an 80% felony jail, that I'm having difficulty getting deputies and control room operators. And it's just a factor of what we're living in right now.
Okay, but we've got the control room operators there, so that we took care of, yes?
Yes, but at $16 an hour, it's tough to, that's why we are going to convert some of them. But I am will come to you saying, hey, we can't even attract at this number. To give you an example,
Go ahead.
Blaine County starts their patrol deputies out at $29. You know what they start their custody deputies out at? $1 less, $28 an hour. We are very, very similar to Blaine County as it pertains to housing. So I'm just asking you to consider putting some monies aside, because they are getting overworked. Fatigue is starting to set in with many of them. Many of them have forced overtime. It's a concern.
Sylvia, I'd be willing to, at this point, and we can just put a placeholder in there, is to look at maybe some surrounding counties and see if what we're looking at ahead of the study. Because, I mean, the study you're gonna start in October, and I imagine we'll have some good numbers before budget season starts.
Absolutely.
But it'll be a fiscal '23 implementation.
Yeah, but
I
not
think-
necessarily. I mean, here's one example of, okay, we've done everything we can up to this point, and then we go forward, and then if they still are not able to hire bodies, we have to do something, because this is not something that, you know, the assessor, okay, it's a strain on everybody, maybe things aren't done in right timelines. This is different. This is something that they cannot function unless they have these amount of bodies, and we just have to suck it up and try to do that. So,
We could start the study in October, because that's when the funding for me to work with the consultant would start. And we could see how fast we can track it, just an initial look, and then still continue to work on it. And if we see any positions countywide that are really below market significantly, then maybe you could do some sort of adjustment along the way.
Well, but
we would want the market data to justify it, but then I need to know, what is our market?
right, and I've been toying around with that, so I know we're gonna have to choose that soon.
So let me ask you this, Sheriff. Where does a patrol deputy start at today?
23 something an hour.
Okay. Detention,
20.
20.
what should the spread be? If we follow Blaine, it would be $1?
$1 less, if we follow that,
If we follow that,
we follow that, yeah.
how many detention deputies do you need? Forecast for me, let's say, over the next year, even if it's a hip shot, to hire.
16?
You need to hire 16?
Today.
Oh, yeah, we have,
Today they need to
yeah, we
hire
have
16.
those vacancies now.
Yes, 8 control, 8 detention. They have
Well, no,
16.
control we took care of, that's in
No,
there.
That's what I'm saying, those positions are empty.
Yeah, 16.
And those
And yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the difference between what we've accounted for here and the additional cost required to get those people up.
We don't even know what that would be right now.
In other words, what I'm hearing from the sheriff is that we're potentially looking at having to raise these wages by $2 an hour. If you're raising by $2 an hour, which is $80 a week, which is $4,000 a year, and you need to hire,
Compression.
okay,
With everybody who's been
and
here
then, but
already.
4,000 times 16 gives us what?
No, 28 positions.
Oh, it's 28 now?
They have 28 control room, or, no, I'm sorry, how many detention deputies do you have?
Yeah, about 16.
No.
8 plus the 8 vacancies we have.
Okay, not openings. How many detention deputies do you have?
Andy?
Total?
Yes.
Yeah, close to 80.
Okay, so 80. So you're talking 80 positions to raise $2 and then not including all the compression. So this is a much bigger issue.
Right,
You
okay.
have to change, you would have to
Matrix, yeah.
shift the whole matrix.
Yes.
You'd have to shift the whole matrix,
Yes.
so if
So-
you have, so $2 an hour is $4,000 a year, and if you multiply that by 80, that's 320,000. And we'd be making that call without a study. I can't really go by Blaine. I think you make a valid point, Sheriff, that we're approaching Blaine in terms of our crisis with housing, but I still think they're more expensive, but even at that.
Many of these positions are gonna have to be filled with overtime because of, so we're gonna have to fill them.
Go ahead, Dina.
One way or the other.
So does the board want to put in a placeholder amount for next year, just so that there's something budgeted?
Which is what the sheriff is asking for.
Right. So
think?
I would think that Sylvia would have an idea of what that, just a general.
Well, again, it goes back to like having that discussion about those mid-year increases, because that's basically what would happen.
Right.
So do you bump up that $250,000
By another
by
300.
another 300 and
Now you're at 550 plus the 400. And you're at well, no, but Sylvia was talking
I
a
was
million
talking-
plus the
Talking
400.
1.4 million.
Right,
Yeah.
1.4.
Yeah, but
Well, what happens if we do this? I mean, what happens to our numbers here?
Well, I think we'd probably be approaching spending it all, but I'd have to do the calculations. Now, this budget block goes until 4 o'clock. We could take a recess.
Can I ask a quick question before?
Yeah, please.
Have all new position requests been considered before we're talking about funding additional increases for already existing positions?
We've actually been going through that step by step and we got sidetracked.
Okay.
So we need to come back.
So what would the board like to do?
Okay, let's back up to it. What were we doing with new positions now? That's where we were before we
Yeah.
got sidetracked.
have for those new positions? Was it 255? That's loaded right there. Where's the loaded?
That's what we were doing, Barry. Barry, do you have any in there?
He does. He's
I
got
do.
one attorney.
I have a legal assistant and an attorney position.
I have a question.
Sure.
Ready?
Yes.
Pat Braden's overworked. We're starting to get an increasing number of complaints, ordinance violations. And we let some of these drag out 12 and 14 months. We write letters, we do what we do. And I'm not suggesting we need a full-time body just to address that, but is there any way that he can get some help in that regard?
Describe more specifically the work that's becoming problematic.
Code violations, ordinance code land use code violations, okay?
So basically, evaluating and filing complaints if necessary and litigating
And
those
litigating,
complaints.
if that's what it comes to, right?
Yeah, we can get him some help.
Do we need to add someone then?
Not for that purpose.
Not for that purpose.
I mean, I have a 7 or 8 position deficit to the public defender that I'm trying to address right now.
Okay, go ahead. So what do we have here that we,
What's our total right now for our ad
Our
backs?
total for ad backs is about 277,000, and I will note that the legal assistant was already added back. and
There you
is
go.
included.
Yeah.
You
So,
okay- you
but
okay
he
with that?
needs- Well, he needs the attorney
Right.
too.
So
and
he needs
that's
the attorney.
113,710.
loaded?
Yes.
Yep, that brings us up to 396,20.
I mean, but it's the same thing. I mean, if the sheriff's telling you that they're having more people in the jail, then that means more people coming before Barry. So it's,
And more people, and more people for Ann to defend and.
but not necessarily. I mean, Barry, a portion of those are gonna have private attorneys. So that's
Yeah,
still
that's
all
true, too.
Barry's portion, not necessarily Ann's portion. And then that's just more on the whole court system.
Okay, so we adding the attorney?
I'm fine with it.
Bill? Done?
Thank you.
So before we leave.
Marissa's, this is becoming like a grab bag.
Marissa has all her positions that she asked for.
Marissa,
What do you need?
Yes.
I wanted to confirm the extra clerk 2 for civil, the extra judicial assistant
Yes.
for JUC, and also the 2 conversions that were, one was bringing a person up to 95% of market, the other was a clerk 2 to clerk 3.
All the conversions are in there.
Okay, I thought they were approved on
they're not.
Wednesday, but they didn't show that, so I want to make sure.
The criminal clerk 2 to 3 and the judicial assistant increase to 95% of market, which are a total of $6,800 were not approved. So do you want to add those?
How much?
$6,800.
Put it,
Yeah, that's fine.
yep. Can we stop now?
This is your
I thought we
meeting.
approved it Wednesday, I was just double checking.
I know, but it's like, I've got a cash register going off in my head. It's-
I know, me too.
We're still under,
I got some too.
What's that?
I got some too. Hold
You got some too? Oh, my goodness.
yeah, so that's with this 650, which is 250 plus the 400 for compression, that's, we're over $1 million now.
Okay, so we came in, this is just very top level. Okay, so we were showing about a $2.1 million surplus.
Right.
Just roughly speaking, what have we just added in the last hour?
Oh, please.
650 we've added probably $1 million anyway.
Half.
Yep, that'd be mine.
Yeah,
Let's do it real quick.
1.1, a little bit under 1.
We need a little wiggle room for that preliminary levy rate too.
Yeah.
So your surplus is now about $1 million.
I think we better stop.
And again, preliminary levy rate, there's gonna be some things moving around, okay? And then anything that's excess at this point, if you're stopping, we would just put that into fund balance.
Or, I mean, is it more appropriate to fund the stuff in fund balance and then,
We can do that. Yeah, we would relieve the burden on fund balance by that much. Would you prefer to do that? Preserves your fund balance.
Warren's got his hand up.
I'm sorry. Who's got, Doc?
Dr. King?
Yeah?
Warren Keene from the coroner's office. For the record, it's on.
No.
Let's sit down and use this.
Yeah, just,
Either one,
no, you,
fine.
It's fine.
it'll pick you up.
Okay, it's on. As you were saying you were ready to stop, I wanted to appraise you of where I was at with the $53,000 request for the
Trailer?
cooler. Grants Management has not found me any grants. I've applied for ARPA funds, but I don't know the status on that. I questioned Kimberly on that and haven't heard back. And I think that has to come before you to be approved, but that's gonna come after our budget is completely closed. I've got some information from some of the manufacturers to look for other grants that are available. But at 53,000, that was asked for and put off to, find outside funding for it. I would appreciate that if we could move forward with that in this budget so that it is accomplished and done, and then we can work on grants for other kinds of things.
We won't find out about ARPA until September.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's right.
That's why I'm bringing it up now.
I'm still comfortable with waiting because our fund balance already this year is gonna grow by, what'd you say, 4 million?
4.1.
It's projected, so when I say that, yeah.
Projected.
So the
So
point
even if
is,
it's 1 million, we're gonna have
We'll have the
enough
money.
return.
So, well, initially,
Go ahead.
this was never gonna be out of fund balance. If you wanna say, move it to fund balance, I'm happy with that. But I was instructed that it was only gonna come from grants.
Right, so at this
Right.
point, I wanna hear from ARPA in September before we take it from fund balance.
if ARPA comes back and says, you've got it, well, you've got it. If they say no, we go to fund balance.
Okay, I'm happy with that. Thank you very much.
Okay? No?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Dr. Keene, do you want to address Bill's concern? Bill doesn't,
You're
Is that fair?
invited arguing.
Pardon?
Nothing. Just-
Yeah, that's true.
If you have a question for me, I'll be happy to answer it.
No, I just don't think think it's gonna sit there and not be used.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily disagree, but I wanna go through ARPA and find out what they're talking about. What they're looking at for these kinds of things. So, and then if we do end up going that way, then I'd like to talk to surrounding agencies and maybe have some collaboration with them.
but I think what we're saying to Dr. Keene at this point is that if ARPA pays, you're fine. If it doesn't, or at least two of us are saying, it'll come from fund balance or some other source. Fair statement?
We'll address it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do want the commission to know that we do have a mutual aid agreement with all of the coroners in the northern counties. So last year, as I explained earlier, Shoshone did have a great deal of problem with cold storage, and they were able to borrow one from District 2. And so that would certainly be beneficial through all of the northern counties
So
as well.
you see making this available to the other northern counties?
Well, as I talked in my presentation to you, only with your permission. I mean, we have a mutual aid agreement, but it's still Kootenai County property that you
Oh,
have to
sure.
authorize to go out.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay. Go ahead, Dina.
Michelle just ran a quick query, and keep in mind right now, the annual value of our total open positions right now is $5 million. So the fact that you're looking at wages and
We're gonna
fast
be able to
tracking
fund the
this is good.
entire building by fund balance. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So that's
Okay.
just an FYI.
So you had a question for us.
Me?
Yeah, you were, before Dr. King came back up about putting the money back into fund balance or
So
something?
did you want us to take any leftovers and apply that to the capital that you applied fund balance to reimburse that fund balance?
I think that's fine.
It's probably makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Then for next year, can we consider funding all county positions, and this is just an idea, funding all county positions at 95%, understanding that we're going to have a handful that don't have turnover, and that we either have to adjust that or, understand that they're gonna have to take from someplace else.
Filled positions?
Yeah, like, so countywide. So we wouldn't do like open positions at 50%. Because I had an analysis done and it's about 5% each year. It's trending, 3%. 3%. Okay, so we could mess with that number, fund them at 97%. Just to continue to hone in to get just a little bit more,
Okay.
that. So it's
We can
just an
look at that.
idea for next year.
I don't know that our system can do that,
Go ahead.
Okay.
but.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think it's an idea, and I think the second part of what you said is also important for next year. Can we kind of stay on this topic?
Yes.
Because that is a total different can of worms that we will work with Sylvia and payroll. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so are we,
Any other questions?
Do you need to come back to
concerns?
us? Do you still need to come back to us? Yeah.
Yes, 20th, we will get the final number from the assessor, so we'll have the final tax number.
Okay.
So the next meeting will be, I believe, on the 4th. It's the 4th. We're going to bring you the total balance budget, everything pretty ready to go for publication. So if there's any last minute, anything that needs to be done, it needs to be done then, because once we publish, it cannot change except to go down.
understood?
Yep. So if there's anything else you think of, let us know sooner rather than later.
Yes, and I just wanted to reiterate that. Is something, Bill, if you might think of, or Leslie, please let us know and we'll run those numbers for you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we need to summarize just to make sure we all have the same understanding? Can you, or is it too much to,
Well, let's take a peek. So
based on what we did today?
positions added back are in yellow,
Uh-huh,
okay? Those were brought over to our summary as this number here.
go ahead.
The 650 includes 400 for compression and 250 for mid-year changes.
Go ahead.
That's it. So those are the changes. Now, we'll have some little reconciling things that we'll do, but whatever the leftovers are, that's gonna go back to reimburse fund balance.
Understood.
I heard that 250 for mid-year. Did we not agree that the detention was gonna bring that up?
So did you have a number that you wanted to put for KCSO for mid-year? 'Cause
And this
we
was-
talked about it, but we didn't.
That's why,
Yeah.
what do you want to do?
Hard. We could.
If we don't do it now, is it going to get any easier?
No,
Well,
that's
I mean, the
problem.
only thing is, we have ongoing fund balance. Meaning, it's not like we're taking fund balance and it's gonna be a one-time, we actually have ongoing fund balance at this point, so.
Well, an
whether we
ongoing
do it-
revenue source, yes.
Ongoing revenue
Yes.
source.
So this surplus is ongoing revenue source, it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
But should we not identify it, per se?
Well,
For detention, I guess is what I'm asking.
right, I mean, as long as we're going in with, as long as the data supports it, so I don't wanna put money aside and just, then that's, you assume that's yours. We still need to do the analysis, if that makes sense.
So what is the number that you would suggest? You.
Well, you guys had agreed on, it sounded like you agreed on another 300 going in there a few minutes ago.
It was the $2 an hour
Yep.
times
Back
the
in
80
there.
employee. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fine to just put a placeholder, but just understanding that It's all
Okay,
subject to
I-
analysis.
I'd be in favor of that.
Okay, so you got 300, was it 320?
It was 300.
300?
And we just want to confirm on the sheriff contract with Hayden that it was 402,000?
Yep, and that's
Okay.
in there.
Oh, is that Hayden?
Thank you, Sheriff, by the way.
Is that a decrease or increase?
Oh, that's an increase.
Non-sufficient.
Bill Walmart.
That last change brings you down to 784. 787.
Hey,
I'm sorry?
784, 787 is your current surplus.
Is our current surplus? Are we ready to,
Enough.
are we ready to stop?
Yes.
Okay, I hear a yes.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
okay, hang on 1 second. My concern is there's still a position increase in there that is going to cause a ripple effect through all of the
Go ahead.
department heads. And so we're having a wage study done. This person was given a mid-year increase this year. I'm just really concerned because I got my second phone call today, having a meeting on Monday. We're addressing it as much as we can, but I still can't support picking out one department head and treating them, when we're going right back into a wage study. So,
And I think part of that is people that have been here for 5 years and they're not at 95% of market, so.
Can that be addressed from the compression?
It wouldn't qualify from a compression issue.
Yep.
It's more of a retention
What are you thinking?
issue.
well, if we're still looking at retention bonuses too,
Might that be a solution?
Retention bonuses. Retention bonuses are just a one-time thing. This will be ongoing cost.
correct, but we're having a wage study.
Yeah.
So that's,
So leave it alone for now?
no, take it out. It's just gonna cause problems because it's going to, department heads are gonna come forward and say, okay, where's mine?
Oh, I see where, okay.
Yeah.
So is it in there?
It's
It's
in.
in there.
I have it highlighted on the screen.
So we need to take it out? Is it?
That's your guys' decision.
No, I think Leslie's point is valid. When we start to do this, we open the floodgates. And either we're gonna do it for all and have a basis for doing that, which is a study, or we don't do it. Sylvia? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
No, I know
You
it.
guys.
Really, it's the board's decision because from a,
Can we
that
turn the mic on,
doesn't
please?
qualify.
Your mic, Sylvia?
Is your mic on? There you go.
It's more of a retention issue, and when the individual was reclassified earlier this year, it was presented as bring back the rest in the budget year. So that's what's been done. I don't know if Bill wants to talk in relation to it, it's the VSO position.
I just have a problem with the floodgate mentality. These are not floodgates, these are individual decisions that commissioners make. And if we were to have a one-size-fits-all in terms of our policy, there'd be no mid-year corrections. Yet there are to the tune of, 700,000 last year. So I hear no mid-year, and then I see mid-year, 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 mid-year. So don't have a lot of sympathy with that.
I guess I'm looking at disparate impact.
Okay, so, because I don't want to get into exec here. The individual got an increase in November.
Yep.
The individual's getting another increase in October,
Yes.
going on a matrix, as with everybody else. So does that take care of any,
It helps, but it doesn't get him to the salary
He's requested.
that's been requested.
the only other solution that I see here, okay, that does not create a broader problem is to try to at least deal with this with a for lack of a better term, a bonus. Because it's one time and it's immediate. Does that work?
That works for me.
Would you want to do that in the current fiscal year?
Well, then where are we, July? How are we looking for you okay for
For
October?
October, yeah, as long as it's done and finished, yes.
This year or next year, because we could put it on the HR agenda.
We can do it next year. Leslie?
Are you gonna give all your department heads bonuses?
Nope. At some point, the answer becomes no, and then we deal with it. In the final analysis, very few people are irreplaceable. Although we do have
That's
an
correct.
increasing number that are, but that's beside the point.
Are we talking about somebody from the sheriff's office? or-
No,
Oh,
no, no,
okay.
no, no, no.
Would you like to?
No, go take a break real quick.
I think where these situations get very difficult, and this actually applied to also to detention, is we do a study, we have certain parameters. Okay, and Sylvia conducts the study, and we draw conclusions, okay? And then an individual comes forward and says, yeah, but if I go here, listen, if you can go to Ohio, I don't give a damn. Move to Ohio if you want to live in the flats. Ohio is not part of our study. So using that argument does not work for me. But if you talk to me about Washington, potentially Oregon, even though there may be relocation, I can accept that, okay? In this situation, and again, I don't want to get into, sorry?
Yeah, you're getting close.
I know, and I gotta be very careful.
I guess
You're right, Jim.
we've had 2 female department heads come forward with asks that have been denied, and now we've got 2, males that are getting approved. So I'm just concerned that this just does not go well.
Go back to what, yes, please, Jim.
May I suggest that you table this discussion and better have it in an executive session? Because it is getting really close when we're talking, we're getting, everyone who didn't know is figuring it out now.
Well, and I get that, and I think, thank you, your point's well taken, but I think the situation also is that we know that there are individuals that are watching this that are ready to come forward. And if we accede to this one, we're gonna have to accede potentially to the others, and Leslie does make a valid point. The individual in question, and I might add, highly valued, did get an increase in November, is scheduled for another one that's competitive with everybody else in the organization in October. So,
As I've said, if we lose this person, there's gonna be a lot of people, missing a lot of services in Kootenai County, thousands, tens of thousands. And I agree with Jim.
So
table it.
for now, do you want to just reduce this to a one-time bonus amount and leave it in the budget for now? Or do you want to cut it?
I thought we were gonna put it in for next year.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that's what
We
we're
would
talking-
reduce
we're
it to a
talking-
one-time
okay.
bonus, which means it would have reduced by $1,024 because there'd be no benefits
I
associated
would
with
say
it.
put the bonus in.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, you got it. Okay.
Marissa, please.
I just got a message from Carlene. She couldn't attend because she had another meeting in another county, but she heard about what's going on, and she asked if it was possible for her, I think it's called deputy.
Hi, I'm on the call.
Oh, Carlene's on the phone
Got
now.
her.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Marissa. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So I'm sorry I couldn't attend the whole meeting. I was part of an event here. But my question is, now that the extra money has been found.
Wasn't found.
Okay, stop. Never mind, go ahead.
Is it possible for me to ask the board to reconsider funding the deputy court business?
You have a
So-
better feel for that?
So Carlene, for me, I'm still not there yet. I still want to see how your current staff is performing. And I'm just still concerned that we are so much smaller than Ada and Canyon, and they didn't get their deputy TCAs when they were our size. So I'm just not quite there yet.
I'm not there at all.
I'm going to follow Leslie's lead on this. Okay, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll let this person know.
Okay. Okay, so that's it?
So that's it.
So what else do you need from us today? Do we need to vote, or it's not
Nope.
necessary at this
What'll
point?
happen now is we'll start finishing and polishing this up. We're gonna do our calculations to make sure that our property tax number is correct and it's flowing into all the right funds. We'll do all of our magical accounting stuff behind the scenes. And we will let you know when everything gets to that point, and then we'll set up that meeting for the 4th. Actually, it's already on the books, but that's when we'll come in with everything all pretty, and you'll say, yes, preliminary budget approved, and we'll publish.
Done.
And thus far, we're at 3%.
Yes. And 90% of new growth. But again, like Jennifer said, the preliminary levy rate is fluctuating.
Next week, so.
Yeah, so next week we'll have the exact number. As the new information comes in, we'll make you aware of it. We'll keep you in the loop as to how the numbers are moving.
Okay.
Clerk's office, nice job.
Okay, yeah, very good job. All right, then. Public comment. Hearing none, I have 2:19. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone.